Alleluia. Om Mani Padme Om. Allah
Hello and welcome to this week's Harmony in Diversity, a program that endeavours to encourage harmony and diversity across the wide range of faiths and beliefs here in Victoria by showcasing individuals and groups involved in interfaith and multi-faith activities. This week we continue our look at the people involved with the Centre of Melbourne Multi-Faith and Others Network. Uncle Reg Blow is an Aboriginal Elder and the current President of Common. Norm Curry caught up with him recently after the planting of a peace tree in the city of Whittlesea to celebrate World Interfaith Harmony Week.
My name's Reg Blow. I'm an elder in the Melbourne Aboriginal community. Now I wear the tag of Uncle, and I accept that, and people just call me Uncle. And I take that as a matter of respect, and it sort of like lifts my confidence, I suppose, to speak as I do on many forums. And in a way, you know, like I sort of earned that right to speak as an elder because I've been involved with Aboriginal affairs for 40 odd years in that time, and I've been at all sorts of levels. You know, I've been advisor to the government, I've managed community organisations, community-based organisations, and I've managed peak body organisations. I've operated on local government, state government, Commonwealth government. And so, you know, like I've been around the trap, so to speak.
Yeah.
But I suppose just my tribal background, I'm a Murray, not a Koori. So I come from Queensland. My mother's country, whom I identify with, is Triple N Lang Bang Gorang Gorang. And that's our clan group, and then tribal. And then my dad's country, I don't identify with it because I don't know it, but he's Kumbin Mary and Yugenberg. So it's the Gold Coast area, where my mum's Bundaberg. I'm married to a Yorta Yorta woman. We've got 4 lovely kids. We've got 4 grandkids now.
Clearly, you're qualified to speak on this next question, which I realise is a huge question. But you hear the reference to Aboriginal spirituality. What does that actually mean? What's it mean to you?
Well, it's a question that's always being asked of me. Aboriginal spirituality. I believe it's that part of me that is my connection to family, community, environment, and the universe. It's that part of me that is pure and unadulterated, where my spirit's free, not tangled up with the physical side of life and worldly things. And that, I believe, is the thing that creates that spirituality. Because spirituality and worldly things, they don't mix. I prefer to hang on to my spirit in that sense, because I know that's going to lead me someplace where I want to go. Where if I cling to my material goods, like cars and houses and that won't lead me anywhere. In fact, it would tangle me up. It will mess my spirituality up. And that's why Aboriginal people are very spiritual. You know, like you go into a traditional situation, you know, it even amazes me, you know, the lack of materialism within my people. Like if you've got a car and they just jump in your car and take it for a spin, don't leave your clothes around because next minute your shirt will be going out the door. But everything's okay because we don't cling to material things. If you want it, take it. And that's another thing, just sort of bringing it in. When we talk about things, we don't talk about mine. It's ours, or we. And we have a sense of connection I alluded to that in my introduction, that, to my family, community, universe, and that's a big part of our spirituality, and it's that connection between each other, which is intangible.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. If I was to connect with you because you've got a nice car or a big home, that makes our relationship no good. But if I connect to you as a person, and we do connect,
Yep.
that's all there is to it. We connect because we are connected.
Yes.
We vibrate in a sense together.
Mani Allah. Alleluia. Mani Allah.
With that, there's an overlay which you have, which quite a few Aboriginal people do have, where they have this awareness of Aboriginal spirituality, but they are also Christians. How do those two things interplay?
Yeah.
It's a big question.
That is. So that sort of leads me on to a really big area. Because to do it well, I've got to tell you from the start.
Mm-hmm.
The start is I was baptised in the High Church of England when I was a small baby. So I'm an Anglican. And I was made to go to church by my parents. I had no choice, and this has happened because my parents wanted to fit in to the Australian society. Being Aboriginal in a white community, that was the way to go. So they thought, because everyone has a religion, it just happened to be the Church of England. Most other Aboriginals in the town I grew up in were Catholic and attended the Catholic school. I went to the state school and I learned very quickly colour didn't matter. I never felt part of the church. There was no other Aboriginal people going to this church. Everyone was white, I was Aboriginal. Of course, everyone was good to me. They made me feel at home and that. But it wasn't what I was used to. I learnt to deal with racism and discrimination out in the community, in the schools. The church, in one sense, created an alien environment for me. It wasn't a real environment. Like, people wasn't nice to me out in the community, at school. And here we was, everyone was nice to me. And I felt that this was a false life. So the church created this environment where it didn't gel, where my life at home and the Aboriginal community was very different. And that's where I was accepted for who I was, not for what I did or knew according to the Bible. And no surprise, I left the church as soon as I could, when I got a few years up. And it was many years later that I knew I needed something, because something was missing in my life to support me spiritually. Also because Aboriginal people had a spirituality. That's why I needed to mix with people with the same spirituality. We believe in spirits, respect creation and all living things. Prayers help, and I got involved with the God-focused group. One group I got to know 35 years ago, and which I'm still engaged with today, and that group was the Minority Armoured, who now since had a name change, it's initiated a change. And those members that practice listen to God in the early part of the day, so I got to understand that this was, this was my people. They were different people and they had different religions and all the rest of it, but still there was this genuineness about them.
Yes.
And I picked it up in the vibrations. So when these people speak to God in the early part of the day, it's understood that when God speaks, man obeys. And they operated by 4 standards of absolute love, unselfishness, purity and honesty. And these were the aims they followed. And after, it took me a couple of years to understand that. Like, I thought, well, by applying, you have to apply yourself 100% and you would become a better person. I took these standards up and tried to live 100%, but fell short all the time, and I was wondering why. It took me a long time to understand that one only had to apply themselves 100% within their own capacity and not to be disappointed when a person could not achieve 100%. Then, of course, not beat themselves up when they did fail to meet the mark.
Yes.
So that was a big understanding. This was about 2 or 3 years it took me to learn that simple little lesson. The group, the membership of the group is made up of all religions, faiths, and even having no faith in the world.
Right.
They accepted me for who I am and done lots of things to support me where I am today. There's no judgments or opinions. I feel that they are fair-income people, and I'm still associated with them today.
Yeah.
Some years ago, I got very sick at one point in my life, and while in hospital, I had this great dream in which I went into a cave to meet my elders to find the meaning of life. In my life, I've been sort of pursuing this idea. What is the meaning of life? What's it mean to me? The main elder in the group told me that what I wanted to know, and when I woke up in the middle of the night, I knew the secret of life. How happy was I? I was going to write it down, what the elder had told me, but decided not to, because how could I forget this important message? 10 seconds later, it went out of my head. I can't believe it even today, but the feeling of being elated and happiness stayed with me for a long time. But the next morning, the day sister came on duty and asked who was going to the hospital chapel for church, and she took my arm. And normally I'd sort of pull away like a horse, you know, but I don't know, I just was led to the chapel without any resistance from me. In the chapel there was a preacher and a young couple and 2 hospital patients, me and another, and the sister. Now this was church. Now to a boy who went to this high church of England and was used to, you know, congregations of a couple of hundred and, you know, all the ritual that the church followed, you know, like it was real to me, you know. So, but every word, every song and prayer made sense to me. For once in my life, you know, all the things in the church just, it was hitting my heart like a gong, bang, bang, bang. And then I found myself asking the preachers to pray for me, and I wanted to give my life to Christ after the service. Even when the preacher was praying for me and leading me in this prayer, I was outside myself, thinking, what are you doing? You know, like, you know, like, you're not a Christian and all this sort of stuff. But nevertheless, I gave my heart to the Lord that morning and went back to the ward, as happy as I have been in all my life, and sitting up at the bed thinking, now I made it. I made my commitment to God, and I'm now a Christian by choice. Sort of, you know, I never had a choice last time, so this time it was my choice. I was happy for that. I didn't realise the significance of that, but being in control was something that I had little control over. My life. Everyone seemed to be making decisions for me, and circumstances and the way things were, you know, I just had to follow the path as it was laid out for me. But for the next 6 years I went to the Aboriginal church, which was the Aboriginal Evangelical Fellowship. So in a way it wasn't really a church, but we used to go to the Uniting Church building. We had a little deal going with them. And I was going to church, you know, twice a day, you know, like on Sunday, morning and afternoon, evening services. And I'd done that for 6 years, and then I was elected as the chairman of the church committee. And of course that's where I took my eyes off the Lord and started to worry about new tyres for the bus and petrol, and how much money was going into the church fellowship and tidings for the minister and all these material things.
Yes.
Remember I talked about when you get tied up with material things, it just clouds my spirituality.
That's right.
So what happened was I got caught up in that, and then all of a sudden my wife decided we should buy another house the other side of town. So we decided to move away from the area and to close to where we were both working at the time. It made sense to me, and we moved. And of course, by moving, you know, we left the church, and then
You're tracing a passage to this Christ awareness, but you've also had a constant involvement with Aboriginality, if you like. You've not abandoned that, and you've been there for your people wherever you've been able to do this. What's that interface between this Christ awareness and Christ commitment and your identification with Aboriginal spirituality? How has it changed the way, or has it made it grow? What's it look like in that light?
I don't know. It's sort of like like the environment created that spirituality for me. Like when I was going to church, the Aboriginal church, everything was good, and I was even getting up and leading the service.
Yes.
And I had aspirations at one point to go out and do some evangelising. Not so much telling people how bad they were, but telling people how bad I was, and I changed. So if I can do it, you can do it.
You can do it, yeah.
And that was my thought. Of course, I never ever got there. But just trying to find a difference between Christianity and spirituality was that even before I became, even during my time with the Aboriginal organisations I was working with 3 communities at the time. There was a lot of pressure, a lot of stress, and every now and again I felt I had to go on my own somewhere. And I didn't know what I was doing. I just had to get out of that office, and then I'd go into the bush. See, like Dandenong had a lovely place called Police Paddocks.
Police Paddocks, yes.
So anyway, I used to go there, and I had a little special spot. I'd go there and I'd sit. And I wouldn't worry about the work, like normally you sort of worry about stuff, but I didn't.
Yes.
I just sit. And I don't know, just absorb the energy in that area.
Yeah.
And I just sit, and I didn't even think. But within, say, half an hour, I'd be that energised. I'd come back to the flow, to the thing, and pick up the manner again. Like normally when you sort of want to, you go away from something that's giving you stress or hardship, you're thinking about how can I get back and how can I do this and how can I, but it never ever occurred to me to even think about it. It was something that was in me.
Yes.
And I didn't realise until maybe last year I was invited to go and do some talk about meditation. And I thought, how can I go and talk about meditation? I don't meditate. Well, I didn't know how to talk about meditation, but I do meditate. Right now, this is after this. So then I started to think about it, and I just sat, like I do, and it all came to me then. Aboriginal men used to always go away on their own.
Yes.
And I started to remember, like one day Uncle will be there, next day Uncle's in the bush somewhere. And I said, where's Uncle? Oh, he'd just walk about,
Yes. Yeah.
And I said, oh. So, see, I didn't know, but there's a part of me that knew.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying, like, this is that spirituality, like, being led by the Spirit. After, like being energised and just by sitting in the bush area, later I was able to develop a spiritual healing walk in one of our parklands very close to the city, and it proved to be very successful by visiting a number of points that made up the walk. I put up the walk for all the common members to experience the walk. One day I'm going to get them all to go on this walk, because one of the things about common is that, we're all, we had, I think, this talk before,
yes,
where we're all different, completely different. Like if you was going to pick people to come together, I think you wouldn't get a different crew.
No.
We're so diverse, but yet there's this similarity with us. There's a spirituality, and that's why I feel very comfortable in Common.
And you're the president of Common, aren't you?
Yes.
Yes.
And I don't know how that came about, but I'm very comfortable with Common.
Yes.
During this United Nations Interfaith Harmony Week, this is a week we always go around, we plant a peace tree as opposed to a peace pole. The concept of peace has been adopted by many countries throughout the world by planting peace poles with messages of peace on them. The idea of planting peace tree came about when it was suggested to me that there were enough inanimate objects being stuck in the earth. It seems a lot better to plant life and watch it grow, and even better for the whole community to watch it grow together. Plus the planet would be a lot better off with more trees. Then again, there's a message of peace within our own community. Every year we should gather around our peace tree, evaluate our progress and reaffirm our commitment to peace and the processes towards peace through positive dialogue and action. And that's what I believe is needed today. We needed something that we can sort of gather around.
Yes.
And make our commitment to as a community together.
Yes.
Because individually we can go to our own churches, we can do our own things, but see, by doing that we split ourselves.
Yes.
By having a peace tree, it provides an opportunity for all the people to come together without any tags or, and it becomes very spiritual, whereby if we bring our own stuff along, like I'm an Anglican, you're this and you're that, and you're that, we create that difference ourselves. Well, if we go there with a pure purpose, that's why I think, this question of spirituality comes into play. We can be very, very spiritual. It's what makes us who we are.
Yes.
It makes the difference. It's not what we think or do. It's how we do it, and that, I think, creates our own spirituality.
Yes.
And once we, like it's birds of a feather flock together, and, why don't we build on things that unite us rather than sort of look at the things that divide us?
Yep, absolutely.
And I think that's the way forward. And that's why, I'm really involved with the communities here and elsewhere. Interfaith is a great forum, whereby when we have an interfaith meeting, what comes across very strongly, how similar we are.
Well, that actually finishes the interview on a promotional note, because, as you know, the title of this series is Harmony and Diversity, and that's what you're actually addressing, is it the harmony arises out of the common ground, not out of the differences.
That's it.
Thanks,
Perfect.
Reg. Thank you very much, Uncle Reg.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
That's all for our program today. For more information, and if you want to see this episode again, visit our website, harmonyindiversity.net. Goodbye for now.
Baha'u'llah, Shanti Om.